So to prepare for this project, we are going to complete a value scale in the different materials that we want to use. This will also give you a really good foundation or introduction to just shading in general with these supplies so that you can use that in future projects as well. So the three different materials we're going to be using graphite, which is the same stuff that's in your regular number 2 pencil. There's just different levels. So there's over on the white shelf underneath the window, there's a bin of graphite pencils. They are labeled, but always check the ends because people don't always put them back in the correct spot, and it will tell you the level right here. So I do have them leveled by kind of in order. So a 2B is, it's pretty dark. 4B is even darker. And then a 6B is the darkest that we have in this classroom. A 2H is as light as you can go, so no matter how hard you shade with that, it's going to stay light. An HB is the same level as your regular number 2 pencil. And then you have a B, which is kind of a middle of the road pencil. It gets a little bit darker. So what I would do is I'd grab a few levels. I don't think you need all of them, maybe 3 different ones. So if it was me, I would say a 2H, a B, and like a 4B or a 6B. So I got a 4B. I would hand sharpen these, and then you will want a blending stump. That's this. And these are good for smoothing out your shading as you shade. So for graphite, we're gonna not only shade a sphere, but we're also going to shade a value scale. So the value scale is going from dark to light or light to dark, so whichever way you wanna work is fine. In this first section, you're gonna leave it pretty much white. You can real gently go in with that 2H if you would like to give yourself a very, very light layer. And then you're going to up the pressure. That's how you're gonna change this, because this is still the same 2H pencil I just used in the previous one. If I just change my pressure amount, it's going to appear to get darker. So same pencil, different pressure. Now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna switch to the B because that's the next level up that I have, and I'm gonna go real light again. Now my real light with this one was almost non-existent. My real light with this one is darker than how hard I colored on the darker section with this one. So light pressure, but a darker pencil. Now I'm gonna up the pressure with this same B pencil, and you're gonna see I'm gonna start to get darker here. Now I'm going to change my pencil again with light pressure. I'm going to go with a 4B. A 4B is pretty dark. Let me find one that actually has graphite in it. That would be good. A 4B is pretty dark. So if I color light with a 4B, it's still going to be pretty dark. So this is as lightly as I can color with a 4B, and it actually almost matches the level of the regular B that I did with the hard pressure, so light pressure. Now I'm going to go really hard pressure with the 4B, and you're going to see that gets pretty dark. So this is just practicing pressure control, how to create dark and light versions of the graphite. Now we're going to go ahead and go over here, and we're going to try to work to shade a sphere, which seems like it would be a very easy thing to do, but it can be a little bit challenging. So I'm going to start with the 2H, which is my lowest level. And for this, I like to hold my pencil kind of sideways when I'm shading. And you got to kind of think about where is your light source? Where is your sphere being hit by light? So I'm going to say right about here, and I'm going to kind of do a little circle so I can kind of see where that's at. And then I'm going to start shading. I do not ever want to shade with straight lines on a rounded object, because then it's going to feel not like it's got any roundness to it. So I'm just going to kind of start circling out. If you have trouble with doing circles, you could also do something called scumbling, where you kind of create little circles as you work your way around the big circle. And you have that blending stump that you'll be able to blend in all this graphite with. So I'm just starting with my 2H, and I'm working my way out. And then I want to start to fade to the next level. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to grab a B, and I'm going to go really light pressure. Start working that. into this section. And then I'm going to start to give myself a little more pressure. Now, I've been doing the scumbling the whole time, but I think I'm going to go ahead and, I prefer shading with just short kind of lines here, but again, curving because this is a curved object. And then I can increase my pressure to kind of darken it as I go. And then eventually I'm going to want to get even darker, so I'm going to grab that next level up, which is my 4B. Take your time with this. This can be challenging. You definitely don't want to just color it in. You want to try to work on giving it some dimension and form, making it feel like it's a little more 3D. And then I'm going to go to that 4B, and I'm going to come in and shade that area. And then I'm going to turn my paper a little bit to make it a little bit easier on myself. Then I'm going to grab that blending stump, and I'm going to start to blend out my graphite to make it appear a little bit smoother. Okay, so I've got darks to lights there, and then I'm going to grab my blending stump, and I'm going to start at the middle here. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. I moved pretty quickly through this. I would definitely suggest slowing down, really taking your time. And I'm kind of creating that scumbling of same motion with my blending stump. And you're gonna see that that really starts to smooth out there. If you want that center section where the light is supposed to be hitting to be brighter, just take an eraser and lift some of that graphite off, because I kind of blended my white in there. So that is practicing the graphite. The next thing you're going to practice is shading with colored pencil. So let's go ahead and get a couple different colored pencils. All right, so since we have completed our graphite, now I am going to go ahead and do some shading with colored pencils. So I grabbed a couple colored pencils. It doesn't necessarily matter which colors you choose. You probably want to choose some colors that look good together. But I chose a couple of cool colors. I chose a greenish blue color and a blue color. And again, when we are shading a sphere, we want to keep a rounded effect. You could practice out here with a value scale if you wanted to as well, to see that it's really similar to the graphite in that you can change your pressure and you will get different shades, which I would definitely encourage you to use within your artwork. Do not just color on your artwork back and forth with one shade and that's it. You need to take this to the next level. So for this, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start, I think I'm going to start, maybe I'll start in the same area. So I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna start laying down the first level of colored pencil. Colored pencil, if you apply it like it should be applied, it's actually a very long process because you're layering and layering and layering the colored pencil on top of each other. For this practice here, we're not gonna layer that much, but instead of trying to color really hard with a colored pencil, you lay down a very light layer, and then you increase the layers, and that's what increases your intensity and the darkness. You can change pressure too, but you shouldn't need to press so hard on a colored pencil. So I'm just coming in, I already put down one layer, now I'm starting to add a second layer here. And you can see just by adding one more layer, not pushing any harder, I'm just getting a little darker effect here. And then I'm gonna keep letting that go out. Now I might press a little bit harder. And then with my next color, I wanna layer it into this previous color so that it really gradually goes from one color to another instead of two colors just right next to each other. And if you don't want a real harsh line, kind of go back in and even those out a little bit. So maybe I want to bring this blue, and I'm going to start within my previous color before I start to fade into the blue, so that it's not just one color and then another color next to it, but more of a blend. And I can pull that bluish green out into this too, so that it's gradual that way as well. I'm going to start to increase that intensity a little bit. You could even add in another color if you wanted to, or just go darker. And again, no straight lines when you're shading a sphere. You guys probably will not be shading a sphere on your artwork, but whatever you're coloring, if it has curves to it, you should be coloring with that curve in mind. There should not be straight lines anywhere on a curved object. I might work some of that blue-green back into these as well. Make it a little more gradual. And again, colored pencil is all layering. So if I want it to get darker, layer in another level of whichever color you want to get darker. So there's a sphere using colored pencil. The last one we're gonna do is we're gonna use stippling with Sharpie. I grabbed two different levels of Sharpie here. I have a fine point and then a ultra fine point. With stippling, wherever you want the darkest section to be, that's where you're gonna do dots really, really close together. And then you're gonna loosen up the dots where you don't want them to appear darker. So this is called stippling. It's just a shading technique when you're using ink. You shouldn't have little tails growing off of them. So this is what I'm talking about with a tail, where it looks like a little line instead of a dot. You don't want that. So don't go so fast that you give little tails, because then it starts to look really sloppy. And I'm doing my darkest section on this curve to the left. So I'm making my dots pretty close together. Some of them even might touch. And then I'm gonna start to allow them to fade out into really separated dots. So gradually, still trying to keep that curve. So you'll notice even on this one, I shaded with a curve. And then you can even incorporate some of those ultra fine stippling if you would like. I'm gonna go ahead and incorporate the ultra fine stippling. So I've got my ultra fine. Obviously that's gonna make much smaller dots. Same process, really close together dots. Over here I just decided to incorporate some different sizes here. And then once I work my way out, they'll get looser or further apart. So if you didn't practice along with the video, make sure you're practicing along after the video. Really spend some time on this, because these are the techniques you're going to use on your artwork, and you need to really grasp the ideas behind them before you try to apply them to your actual artwork. So practice all three. Once you're done, get this glued into your visual journal, and then you can start to look for your reference image that you'll be using for your artwork.